Morning, afternoon, evening, whichever is appropriate when you're watching this or wherever you are. I'm about to head off on a trip of a lifetime, literally, because I've never done it before, and it's unlikely I'm ever going to do it again. But that's sort of what a trip of a lifetime is all about. I'm off to Egypt. I'm taking a cradle to grave tour, basically turn up at the airport, and then 2 weeks later get deposited back at the airport, although I'm adding a little wild traveling on my own on either side of the tour. What I've done here, though, is following this little off the top of the head chat, there'll be I'm going to add in the little video that I did using Google Maps showing the tour itself in Egypt. So we leave in a couple of days' time, and we're going to hit London. And in London, we, of course, will be doing the Victoria and Albert. And I'm going to go to the Museum of Natural Sciences because, of course, the Titanosaur is there. It just opened. And, of course, the British Museum, where I shall spend a fair bit of time in the Egyptian department because, of course, I'm going to Egypt on Thursday. So there is the start. I also realized that if I was going to report on this, not that anyone watches, I mean, I do my little Nordic walks and barely get anyone to watching. Makes me wonder why I do this, but I think it's not a bad idea to record some things in your life. And certainly a trip to Egypt is worth recording. And I hope anyone who does watch it enjoys what I do. Although I warn you all, is amateur hour here, and you shall discover that in my editing. At any rate, hope you enjoy what is to come. I'm hoping to upload while I'm abroad, and of course, when I get back, at least we'll have my desktop, which will make editing far easier than having to do it on a tablet. I do like my little challenges. Or I should say I don't like my little challenges. At any rate, feel free to comment. Not so keen on negative comments. They don't do any good, so they'll probably not make it in for long, making it a Sisyphean activity on the people who like to post negative comments. I guess that's about it. It's a bit nerve-wracking to be on this side, but as I said, if I don't do this side of the camera, I'm not sure I can really do a decent job of reporting on my experience. The whole trip is about having an experience. It's to see things, of course, but it's all about experiencing something rather than existing. So I'm hoping it'll be interesting from that perspective. Quite terrified about the whole thing. Egypt is so far out of my comfort zone. The surface of Mars seems closer, but it's all doable. I mean, people do this all the time. Not keen on the fact that I have actually 10 flights to get through. This whole kabuki theater about security, I will not get on that. I could whinge on about that for I don't know how long. At any rate, will not continue. Hope you, so below or after this, it will, or following this, we'll follow the 30 minutes, it appears, that I've done already about the route and itinerary. At any rate, thanks for watching. We're going to be taking a trip, and I've been wanting to do a trip to Egypt since I was a wee child, and finally decided to take it. I suspect this will be my last big overseas trip. I have the feeling it will also challenge me to my limits. I am 70. Anyway, so it's Egypt, and I sort of have wanted to go there since I saw the Tutankhamun exhibit at the Royal Ontario Museum back in the 1960s. So we will, we've been waiting a long time for this, and I hope I survive. Anyway, so It's 14 days. It's a cradle to grave tour run by this company that's been doing it for a number of years. There are 3 people accompanying it to help us understand and to help us interpret what we see. One of them, Brian Forrester, has been doing this for a number of years, and you might have even seen him on such programs as Ancient Aliens. But he has his own channel on YouTube and investigates sort of anomalous history, you might say. I'm not quite sure. He looks at history, he's in that group of people who looks at history from not necessarily the traditional or accepted perspectives. For example, Egyptologists, brilliant people generally speaking, but most of them don't have geological background or engineering background. There was an excavation where they found something like 40,000 stone vessels in this pyramid. And fine. Question I have though is, how are they made? Because that's the thing they can't explain. I have no problem with people explaining things to me but sometimes they need to understand what they're explaining. And I think interpreting context is one thing, but understanding creation is another. That's why I like this experimental archaeology that we're seeing more and more of, so that there's an understanding of how it was done, as opposed to perhaps why it was done, which is often more the historical perspective or the Egyptological perspective. Anyway, so we start on the 7th of October, the 7th of April, all things going well, arriving in Cairo. Actually, I'm planning to arrive the day before, just to be safe, so to speak. Because the way airlines are going nowadays, you really have to build in a little wiggle time. So I'm going to be arriving a day early, which will give me a day perhaps to do one little wild travel excursion. So I'll be arriving on the 6th, and we will be arriving at Cairo International Airport and staying at the Meridian Cairo. This is where the tour has organized us, which is very handy. Somebody meets you, takes you across to the hotel and deposits you, meets you, gets you through all the little business that you have to do at the airport. Then you're off to the hotel where that on the evening of the 7th, we get a sort of introductory lecture on, I gather, some basic practicalities of just traveling in Egypt, and more information on some of the sites that we will be visiting. Now, the reason we're staying here is very early the next day, on the Saturday, we will be getting into our airplanes and flying south. And since the flight leaves at 8:30 in the morning, which I suspect means getting up around 5 o'clock in the morning to build in the security wait times and getting on the airport. Anyway, good that we're only a 10-minute walk from the plane, so to speak. We'll be flying from Cairo all the way down to Aswan, where we start the tour sort of proper. We have spent a number of days around here. So on the Sunday we fly out, and on the Saturday the 8th we fly out, and we sort of settle into the Mövenpick Aswan. That's where we'll be staying. Where are my layers? More. Street view, thank you. So we'll be staying at the Mövenpick Aswan. Let's just click here. And sort of the view from their front yard. It's on an island in the Nile, and it looks across to Aswan on the east bank. So we are staying there, and that evening it's a sort of an easy day. There's a lecture in the afternoon and another lecture in the evening on the things that we're going to be viewing over the next few days in the area. And that's basically it. So we have, I suspect we have a little free time, maybe go for a tiny wander, I don't know. It's all, wild traveling is not what I'm all about on this trip. At any rate, so that is the Saturday, and then on the Sunday we do the unfinished obelisk over here. We shall just pop down for a little picture. So we will be visiting this. I suspect one of the lectures will be on this. It will be touched on in the lecture. This is the one of the quarries at Aswan, and granite, I suspect, looking at it. The famous granite that turned up in the pyramids. So we'll be doing the unfinished obelisk and the temple at Philae. Only I have the feeling that we do Philae first. Why are there no little blue dotty things? I tell you, it's enough to make you crazy. Why does it keep disappearing? Anyway, we'll be doing this temple. Let's just take this one. This might give us a better overall view of the area. This temple also, if I'm not mistaken, was moved when they built the Aswan High Dam and created Lake Nasser. I may be wrong, but I have the feeling it was. And then for lunch, we nip across over to the Solia Nubian with views over to the temple. And then we do the unfinished obelisk, which I suspect is after, because otherwise we have lunch and then we've got the entire afternoon off, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for the entire afternoon. Anyway, so that is on the Sunday. Oh yes, we do have a visit to the Papyrus Institute. I haven't looked that up, but it's obviously in Luxor. So that's an okay day. Tempo, obelisk, lunch, museum. I'll be ready for bed that evening. Then on that Sunday the 9th, and then on Monday the 10th, that's going to be a punishing day, because we are given time in the organized tour for a side trip of our own undertaking to Abu Simbel. And because Abu Simbel is about 500 kilometers south of Aswan, it's about a 3.5-hour drive, I understand. I think it's 500 kilometers by water, which may be longer. At any rate, it's a 3.5-hour drive there, and a 3.5-hour drive back, working the assumption there's no traffic. And I have no idea how much time is spent actually at the Abu Simbel temples. I suspect between an hour and an hour and a half, because we have activities planned optionally in the afternoon. I'm not quite sure. I haven't got all the information on this. All I know is it will be a very early start, and we'll just pop down for a little look to see a picture. And there's Nefertiti's temple and Ramses temple. I could be wrong on the Nefer one. I always get Nefertiti and Nefertari confused. And there was another Nefer that Aten's wife was a Nefertiti. This is a Nefertari. And then there was a... Oh, I'm not very good. Getting old. Anyway, so a little quick visit there and then drive back. I hope lunch is included as well at breakfast, because I can't imagine all that time without pots of tea. Anyway, so I'm like, oh, here. We'll just stop briefly at this little dot here on the road. This is what we'll be driving through, which is pretty amazing. So, then we get back up here, and in the afternoon we have an optional visit to the souk and a spice shop, which I think is basically the only official tour activity that day. Then although that evening we do transfer from the hotel to the Nile cruiser that will be taking us up to Luxor. So that was the Monday the 10th, and on Tuesday the 11th we travel up on the cruiser to Kom Ombo, which is about halfway, I vaguely remember. Ah, here we go. Yes, we go to the Temple of Kom Ombo. Which is a temple to Sobek, if I'm not mistaken. There's a crocodile museum there. So that's our activity that day, and then I believe in the afternoon on board we get a lecture from Mr. Forster, Brian Forster. No doubt relating to our upcoming trip to Luxor, which is another sort of center of activity. Anyway, on Wednesday the 12th, we travel to the Temple of Horus, which I probably will not find. Oh yes, up here. It's up at Edfu. So we'll be going up here, which is another stop on our way to Luxor. And then back on the boat, and then continue cruising up to Luxor. And that basically well, we're at Luxor now, where the next series of activities, it's sort of a base station, because a lot of the things that we're going to do require a bit of a trip. But one of the things that right by us are both the Luxor Temple and the Karnak Temple. And on the day that, on the Wednesday the 12th, we're doing Edfu, and then we have a little pop by the Karnak Temple up here. And we're still staying on the Nile cruiser, but on the following day, the Thursday the 13th, we transfer to the Steinberger Hotel, right down here, for our sort of excursions at that point. We transfer to it that day, but we also do Nefertari's tomb and the Ramses of the Ramesseum, the Colossi of Memnon, and a hit of the Luxor Temple at night. That's going to be a jam-packed day. So we start off, we'll be doing, no, the Ramsey. I want to see the Ramsey one, but that's her. And the Hatshepsut. No, where I had it. T-E. Ooh. QB 66. We'll be doing Nefertari's tomb here. No, this looks like I have that sort of 3D goggle system, Oculus, and I have a tomb visit, and I have a feeling it's this tomb. Anyway, so we do Nefertari, in the Valley of the Queens. We're also doing the Ramesseum. I'm not sure where that is. Ramesseum. Ah, there we go. Very nearby, the Ramesseum. The Colossi, which I have a big feeling. Ah, here we are. It's Colossi, all very nearby. It's a very not a lot of traveling that day. There's the Colossi. And then we're finishing up at the Luxor Temple at night, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Luxor Temple at night, which I vaguely think has some sort of sound and light show, or it lit up at night, so it's supposed to be quite the sight. So this is the Luxor Temple. The Luxor Temple and Karnak Temple, but they're sort of, I think, part of the same sort of religious complex, because they're connected by the Sphinx Avenue. And it wouldn't probably have been commercially and residentially built around as it is. Anyway, so that is our Thursday, April the 13th. On Friday, April the 14th, we're doing this is where we go on a big excursion. So we're doing the Temple of Seti, which is on our way, if I am not mistaken. Yes, I will be doing a search for it. Oops. Yes, there. Oh yes, here we are. We'll be doing this one. Sorry, no blueies to look at. And then continuing on from there, because we were staying in Luxor here, off to the Temple of Seti. And then I suspect we'll be following this road all the way up and around and around and around and around until we get to about here to Abydos, because that's one of the pluses of this tour is at Abydos we get a 2-hour private tour of the Osiris. At the Temple of Abydos, and then the Temple of the Osiris Temple behind it. No, probably before it. I'm not sure which way we're looking at things. Anyway, so that's basically a big travel-y type day. We'll be in coaches a lot. And then a trip back, if I'm not mistaken. Although I vaguely remember that in the long form explanation of the tour that we stopped for a bite to eat somewhere along the line. Anyway, back to Luxor before we set out the following day to the Temple of Hathor at Dendra, which is closer. If I move in here, we should pop up. It's around here. You know, when you're not looking for something, it just leaps out at you. And when you're looking for something, it never does. Hathor. H-A-T. H. There. We'll be going to this temple. And as you can see, it's sort of halfway to the Abydos temple that we did the day before. And just pop down for a little picky. And this is the temple to Hathor that we will be doing that day, which I believe is outside of lunch after the visit. I think that is the only official activity that day. So, and then we're back to Luxor. Luxor, there we go. And we're back to Luxor. That is Saturday the 15th. Little rest up because the next day we fly from Luxor back to Cairo. And then we go from the airport to the Hyatt Regency, which is over in this area somewhere. Yes, this is where we'll be staying for a few days while we're visiting the big sites around Cairo. There, the Grand Egyptian Museum is here, and the Giza Necropolis is here. And these are basically the areas that we'll be concentrating on these trips. As we come up to the end of the trip here. So there is an optional trip on the day that we fly in, that's Sunday the 16th, to visit the Osiris shaft. I'm a little iffy on that for me at the moment because there's a lot of ladder climbing, and while I'm not completely incapacitated, I'm not as nimble as I used to be, and so I have to think that through. If I want to pay $300 US, again, do not ask me why I'm paying in US, for it when it might be beyond me. So I'm going to think on that for a bit before I decide. So we're doing the, so that's the Osiris shaft optional side trip, just sort of like the optional Abu Simbel, and I think there's an optional hot air balloon, but you won't be getting me up in one of those things. Then on the Monday we do the Serapeum, that's Monday the 17th, we do the Serapeum, the Sound Healing Hospital, and then we have a private, again, a private tour, I think it's 2 hours, in the Step Pyramid, which is in Saqqara. The Pyramid of Djoser, isn't it, also? Here we go, yes. We go down here, there's the Serapeum, and then
then we get a tour inside the step pyramid, which has, I understand, it's kilometers of underground passages. It is possible to get lost. And I think the final days are going to be the most physically challenging because I expect there's a lot of walking up and down and climbing up and down, things like which might be just reaching my physical limits. I am 70, so I'll just say that. Anyway, so onward we go. Then on the final day, so that is the Monday the 17th. On Tuesday the 18th, we visit the Grand Egyptian Museum and Abu Roash. So a nice little break from heavy activity, because the last day, which is the Wednesday, is probably another one of the bigger physically challenging days, I think, at least in my head. So we do that. We do the Egyptian Museum. We do Abu Roash, which is the temple, not the temple, a pyramid that is basically Abu Roash. Where did I? Looking at it just recently. Anyway, it was a pyramid, and it's basically all the top bit has disappeared, and only the bottom bit that was dug into the living rock exists or remains. So we'll be doing that. Anyway, and the museum, which I think would be just enough. A nice little sort of activity day, but not too challenging. The last day is the 19th, and this is where we will be doing a lot of activity around the Giza necropolis. We'll be visiting a few things. We have lunch at the 9 Pyramids Lounge, and here is the view from that. This would be our view while we have lunch. There's the restaurant. Ooh, not so sure if I want to sit out in the sun. Oh, floating head. Anyway, we'll be lunching there, and then in the afternoon returning to the Great Pyramid, where we get a 2-hour private visit. Now, I do say it's the sort of the most physically it's a physically challenging exercise, because we are talking about internal structures here. And that would actually, we should be on the north side for this. But internal structures here that where the King's Chamber is 70 meters in the air. You have to climb up 70 meters, and some of it is at sort of like a 45-degree angle. So this is there's the robber's entrance and the original entrance, and we go in through the robber's entrance. But of course, there's absolutely no way I am missing out on that. People are just going to have to wait while I slowly, glacially move from spot to spot. Anyway, so that is the final day. And then we're back that night. We transfer from the Hyatt back to the Meridian at the airport. And then the following day, we're sent off packing to our various destinations. In my case, I want to return to Luxor for 3 days and get in a visit to the Valley of the Kings, the Temple of except Chut and maybe a few other things. I haven't worked out my itinerary there, but I have decided I am hiring somebody to drive me around and tell me things. I'm going to be hiring a guide because there's absolutely no way I want to do wild traveling in Egypt. I'm doing a little wild traveling in London on the way here, there, and on the way back, but I'm just not up to wild traveling in Egypt. I think it's beyond my ability, to be honest. So, that's it, and I will leave it at this point because you're all if anyone's still here, you're all probably bored stiff. But there's going to be more on this. I'm going to take you through the whole process. Anyway, I will end it here.